them when they're stealing them from their land, kills them, all under a church or churches. God said, you're going to have to pay and you're going to have to heal that land. 2,300 days and then the sanctuary will be cleansed. There's a book called Daniel, and y'all all try and ignore it because you've never taken the time to do the math. But that still does not excuse you from the judgment. 2,300 days, then the sanctuary will be cleansed. When I was 2 years old, the woman taught me Daniel and Revelation. When I was 3 years old, the woman taught me Daniel and Revelation. When I was 4 years old, this woman taught me Daniel and Revelation because when she heard that my dad's aunt, Henrietta, and Aunt Betty, and my grandma Leggett studied prophecy like they did, she went to go see. And when she sat down at the feet of my Aunt Henrietta, Aunt Betty, and my grandma Leggett, they proved that they knew prophecy. They proved that the history record proves in Isaiah and Daniel that hundreds of years said the Son of God was going to come, live, that they was going to kill him, and then he was going to raise from the dead and pour out his Holy Spirit. Isaiah and Daniel, both. And then Daniel goes on to describe 10 barbarian tribes of Europe that will come up just like the 10 sodomite tribes of Abraham. The 10 tribes of Europe are Abraham's 10 tribes that Assyria carried off. My mother learned from my Aunt Henrietta and my Aunt Betty and my grandma how to study like the seer studied. And it was our family's job to go and create movies and skits and plays and music productions and films and tell the story of the seers from the beginning and how they have always been right, how they have never, ever, ever, ever been wrong, ever. When you tell the story of the seer, you tell the story of perfection from the time the world was created to this very day and going forever into the future. The story of the seer is those who have never ever failed God on earth and have lived perfect and righteous down here. While the biblical book of the wicked who received the judgment and the curses of God, it's just the group God keeping his promise that he would keep enmity between his people, and he calls his people the seers. So I came down here to Full Sail, Florida, to go to a school called Full Sail. Because my mom said create a seer lifesaver program. Any seers, any people whose family was a seer, any people who desire to be seers again, men who desire to be husbandmen. You're supposed to grow from boys to the husbandmen, the perfect husbandmen. You're supposed to grow from girls, perfect girls. Every last one of you in your mother's womb is perfect. They lying to you. And then if any anybody getting off the path, God said the fathers are judged because they are the ones who lead the children off the path. And they were the ones who were commanded to train you up. So a child, you're perfect until you, after the age of accountability, when your choices are turned over to you and not based off of training, your parental training, and then when you make the same decisions that your fathers did, then you become accursed. You're perfect until your training runs out, and and your choices that you even when you're making choices under training, your choices are not on you. The word says they're on your fathers. But when you make a pattern of choices, when it is your time to choose, and when it is your time to be judged by your choices, because you're making the same choices that your fathers were making, then you curse yourself and throw it. That's called rejecting your birthright. So this is a heaven and earth holiday, June 24th coming up. Because if my mother was here, I guarantee you nobody in our family would be acting the way that you're acting with her sister Diane Hackett in the grave, her brother Butch Hackett in the ground, their daughter Jennifer Hackett laid to rest too, and then their grandchild Shawnee. If my mother was here, if my mother was here, not near one of y'all would be moving the way you move. If Beverly Webb Leggett was breathing right now and Diane went to sleep, then Jennifer went to sleep, then Butch went to sleep, and then Sean Hackett went to sleep, Beverly Webb would be doing exactly what I'm doing. We call it an emergency return to your first love. Revelation 3, Revelation 2 gives you the blueprint. It says, return to your first love. Ephesus. Return to the model that was put in place with John O. Wilson and Gertrude Wilson. And they 10 followed what they put in place. And then in our neighborhood, we had an annual calendar. We had an annual move. We're returning to our first love 4 times a year annually. I'm going to be on the calendar. We got 4 events that we do. We do Joy Night, Cookie Bake, Family and Friends Day, Family Reunion. We do Joy Nights every Friday evening, our home worship, our evening worship. It's called Joy Night. All throughout our great grandfather's legacy. And for some reason, the one thing that God commanded Moses to go tell Pharaoh, y'all think we as a family, the reason that our family received greatness and blessings from God was because we had to worship right. And somehow y'all think that y'all could let somebody else take over the institutions, the church, the community. They saying John O. Wilson would have never let us take this from him. So obviously y'all claiming to be John O. Wilson, but y'all not John O. Wilson. This what the state, this what they do, this what they doing to y'all. This was some corporate church entity after 1991 done slithered up north from the south and gobbling up and just moving into territory and taking over church. Listen, yo, we ain't on none of that. We ain't on none of that. Confederate soldiers, KKK soldiers, British loyalists, the British Crown, they coming in here and saying, yo, this is the state of England. And we not on none of that, son. And yes, you could move to other places and get homes, but God said, I will expand your territory, meaning you can never ever lose the birthright lands. You have thrown away your inheritance. When you expand and you fumble the original land that God gave you, He said, I will expand your territory. And expansion is you keep and you add on to, it's called wealth. That's what glorifies God. And whenever it's time to do the four events that we're talking about, then everybody descends back on home and it's identical to how it's always is going to be because the land remains in the same hands that it will always remain in. Are you supposed to expand your yes, that gives glorify to God. Are you ever supposed to lose the original place where you were given birth to at? No. It's called the birthright lands. So I'm here to fight for and establish that Beverly Webb and Evelyn Webb and Gertrude Wilson and Aura Lillian Leggett and Ethel Brown Mason and all of the queens that gave birth in lands and birth in lands. They own the lands that they gave birth to. These are the women of the covenant with God, the seers. So we have studios, Hollywood studios, to display the work that we do. In the Supernatural Thundercat, seer lifesavers. We're going to document Sean Hackett prove that what Diane was putting into him was lifesaver. At 13 years old, 2 years ago, he proved that what Gertrude Wilson and them were putting into us is not what they're putting into y'all in those churches. I'm going to show you the fruits of our spirit, our Holy Spirit that we got from Gertrude and Beverly and Aura and Evelyn and Maggie and Dot and Henrietta and Elizabeth and Elizabeth Leggett. We got 5 families in Trenton. 5 Points in Trenton. I don't know anybody who has as many families in Trenton as I do. So can't nobody tell you the story of the 17 colonies and all of that, the 13 colonies, like our family. And not only do we have one or two, we got the Webbs, the Wilsons, the Masons, the Leggetts, the Ganges, and the Browns. And then the Browns and the Masons founded and started Newark, New Jersey, too. So Trenton and Newark. Webbs, Wilsons, Leggetts, Masons. Ganges, Browns. And do you know that every person, you have 16 great, 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 great grandparents. 16 husbands and wives. You have 16 husbands and wives, just 3 generations above you. 16. And you mean to tell me you believe that they enslaved all of your ancestors? They ain't even enslaved. I don't. My grandma tells us of individuals in West Virginia being ripped from their family. So yes, that's why my grandfather told me to focus on this real battle, not this fake battle. And my grandfather told me, you better not lose none of them. I don't care where they took our family to. Enslaved them in Kenya, enslaved them in Sudan, enslaved them in Darfur, enslaved them in the Congo. I don't care because the U.S. was creating their slave trades in Africa, Liberia, Rwanda, South Africa, Kenya, Eritrea, Ethiopia. These are fake US and British manufactured slave trade ports after 1865. I'm the offspring of Beverly Webb. The wages of sin is death. Revelation 18 says, pay back to the whore mystery Babylon double for what she has done to you. And at the end of Revelation, it says, burn it down in one day, every day, until it's dead and gone, until the people faking like they got supremacy, black and white, gray and everything in between, stand afar off and weep and mourn because their slave trade has come to an end. This is what the Bible told you to do 2,000 years ago after they killed the Son of God. Revelation 18 was written. John said it 2,000 years ago. Then the British, they printed it and gave it right to you in 1611 in your King James Bible. Revelation 18 says, judge on earth. The righteous are supposed to judge the wicked on earth after testing the fruits of their spirit and then burn every trace that they ever touched to the ground. And they're going to stand afar off and weep and mourn because they don't have no authority. They are Hollywood. They faking. And we here to call a bluff. Beverly Webb called every bluff. We here to call a bluff. And then we here to give out the crowns for those of y'all that want them. Come get it.